We're talking Ohio State football on the Our Lads Football Network, Our Lads Football YouTube channel. And believe it or not, we're also talking a little bit of snow as the Ohio State Buckeyes get ready and set to face the Texas Longhorns in the national semifinals, Dallas, Texas, on Friday evening. So, of course, we have to bring in Kevin Noon once again from BuckeyeHuddle.com to talk Ohio State football. And Kevin, how's the weather in Dallas?
As of today, I think it's fine. Come game day, I think there could be a foot of snow on the ground or something like that. We were talking off air prior to the show, and I was just like, it's just, I can't get away from the snow. And the good news is I can, at least people won't be able to say, well, you guys brought it down from Ohio with you. Well, we've already had our snow. I have like 4 or 5, 6 inches on the ground. I'm going to have to go shovel the driveway after this. But to say that Texas, the state of Texas, not the team of Texas, is ill-equipped for the snow would be an understatement. I lived there for 5 years in the early 2000s, and it's going to be a mess. It is going to be a mess. Teams arrive in Dallas on Wednesday, so they will be ahead of the storms. But, events may be getting canceled. Some of a practice or something like that, because
you would think so, yeah.
I think teams would much rather go through walkthroughs in their hotel ballrooms than deal with this weather, because it's not going to be great.
Yeah, because so that's the thing that's important to note is that there's a big difference between communities that expect snow and communities that, all right, maybe we get 5 to 8 inches every 10 years. And that it's a huge difference. If you've been in those communities, you know what we're talking about. It's not good. They just, they don't, and they don't put it into their budget. So it's usually one of those time periods where they just say, everybody stay home, please. Just everybody stay home. And the problem is you can't stay home. You got to go to the game. And that brings up the problem is that how are you going to get to the game? So that is going to be very interesting. But again, that's on Thursday. The game is on Friday night. So we'll keep our fingers crossed that, look, they've had days to prepare for this. So that means you can already start bringing, Jerry's got enough money. You can bring in, pay for as much help as possible. And if I don't want to hear anything, if this doesn't go well, then that's bad on Jerry or bad on whoever it is else that's putting on this show. Because this is a big event for the country. It's a big event for both schools. Let's talk about that, Kevin, because Ohio State absolutely just dismantled Oregon. And, of course, on the other side, even Ohio State people had to be shaking their heads going, what is this? Did you guys prepare to play us? It was just very strange what was going on the other side. Yes, Evan Stewart didn't play. Yes, they had James get left the game, but it was already 24-0. It was almost like, I don't know. They didn't understand what they were dealing with.
Yeah, obviously Ohio State changed a lot of things that it was doing. It was much more free in offense. I think they came out passing. They kept passing. Sprinkled some runs in, but big hits. Jeremiah Smith. It's not like Jeremiah Smith was not a thing when they played in October. Jeremiah Smith had a touchdown in that game. So, I do think there have been some wholesale changes to Ohio State's attack. There have been some changes to personnel, but again, it was a case of where you would sit there and say Ohio State moved away from starters who had gotten hurt on the offensive line and had backups in there. And Oregon really had no answer. Oregon gets Jordan Birch back on defense. He gets in there, gets a TFL. He beats his man a couple of times, but Will Howard's able to get out of the way. But yeah, again, Ohio State, they only put up 14 in the first quarter as opposed to putting up 21 against Tennessee in the first quarter. But then they followed it up with a dominating second quarter to go to the halftime locker room up 34-8. It was, it was something. And I think I said on your show when we were previewing the game, I think this might be a game well into the fourth quarter that Ohio State's losing, that they're going to have to come back and win.
Sure.
Yeah. So I don't think any of us saw it coming. Now we've seen this twice. Does that impact all of our decisions on how we think that the Texas game is going to go? And as of the moment that we are doing this show, I have not put a I have not put a score or a prediction down on paper, but it's really hard not to sit there and say, why can't Ohio State do this again? But then again, Texas has 8 quarters of tape to look at now to sit there and say, oh man, this is not the team that looked like it was like left for dead against Michigan.
I got to tell you, Kevin, first look, I handicapped both games, obviously. I was not surprised by Ohio State. Look, we knew the Ohio State-Tennessee game was basically going to come down to up here. And as soon as they got off to the great start, nothing else surprised me in that game, including the blowout. This blowout surprised everybody. Of course, it is what it is. But on the positive side, obviously, for Ohio State or anybody out there that is thinking of wagering on this game, don't worry about it. Ohio State's going to blow out Texas. Don't worry about 6 points. Don't worry about the fact that it was maybe 2 and then it changed to 6. This is going to be a blowout. I'd be shocked, utterly shocked, if this game wasn't over by mid-4th quarter, maybe earlier. And that is because Ohio State is now playing exactly the way that everybody expected they were going to play in the beginning of the season. And Texas and the SEC is overrated. We saw it again last week with Georgia. Nothing. They had nothing. And then Texas, lucky to win the game, should have lost. 4th and 13. I'm surprised that defensive coordinator hasn't been fired, but, I jest. But who calls a 4th and 13 blitz? Not me. So Kevin, I'm sorry, but I'm all over Ohio State now. They are clearly, and I know the odds say it, to the favorites to win the national championship as well. They should be. I think the national championship game is going to be tough, whoever they play, Penn State or Notre Dame. I think Penn State will probably give them a tougher game because Notre Dame's injury situation is starting to get really up there. Even though Abdul Carter may not play, so we have to keep an eye on that. But this is about Ohio State now again, Kevin. I mean, this is as long as nothing else creeps into them that creeped into them somehow in the Michigan game, this is theirs. This is theirs for the taking.
I'm going to say something that Ohio State fans aren't going to like, but nobody beats Ohio State like Ohio State.
There you go.
That's kind of the thing. But I think we all self-sabotage to a certain point. I'm the king of self-sabotaging. So, I mean, I get that, but they seem to really be on a mission. I've seen Ohio State plus 110, plus 120 out there for winning the national championship, which, is certainly a course correction from where they were just a couple weeks ago, and certainly coming out of the Michigan game. I should have jumped all over that. I need to get my affairs in order before I board a plane, because once you get down to Texas, there's no sports wagering, but there is in Ohio. So I need to look at some things before I
absolutely
before I get out of here. I've had marginal success in the CFP so far, but I still bet. My best betting is in NASCAR, which is just shocking and random, but I do really well in NASCAR.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, where has this been the rest of the season? But then again, if they'd been doing this the rest of the season, would somebody have had a chance to solve it? Well, I don't know if there's a way of you're really solving all of this because of where Jeremiah Smith is right now. I think where the confidence of Will Howard is right now.
Yep.
And all of that really kind of puts it in a wild position of where I think that the Buckeyes are the team to beat. I think Ohio State certainly has a chance of being able to go out there and put up a bunch of points. And yeah, Texas has not exactly been dominant in its last 2 games. It came out to a big lead in Clemson and then watch the Tigers come back. And this is a Clemson team that honestly was not really in the CFP discussion until it beat SMU. And then it gets in there and they have that game. Arizona State, yes, that 4th and 13 call where somehow the receiver gets behind 2 defensive backs who were having a tea party or whatever they were doing. A targeting call that was not called by Big Ten officials. So, I don't want to get a note from Tony Petitti, the commissioner, or Bill Carollo, the director of officiating, but what the hell were they looking at on that one? It was obviously targeting. And yeah, I'm sure Ohio State fans were rooting for Arizona State to win the game, seeing that as an easier game. You shut down Cam Scatterbo and he's their offense at that point. But Ohio State certainly is sitting in a good position, but the Texas defense, each week we've heard about a defense that's going to shut Ohio State down. The Tennessee with James Pierce Jr. and everything else, but their secondary was a little questionable. All right, now you got Oregon, who is going to shut them down. They're getting Jordan Birch back. Well, they gave up 31 to Ohio State the first time around, and they gave up a ton of points to Penn State in the Big Ten championship game, so maybe they weren't as good as advertised. Now we got Texas. Oh, but Texas has given up 55 points in the last 2 games. So, what the hell are we doing here? So
Yeah.
I kind of agree with you that if we rank the likely scenarios of Ohio State blowout, Ohio State close win, Texas blowout, the one that I would push the most chips in is on Ohio State blowout. But, it's how is the team doing each day? I mean, that's the thing. I mean, I'm fighting a little bit of a sore throat and cough or whatever.
Yeah, sure.
There's a bug running around Columbus right now. Half the media has it right now. So I mean, you just don't know. And I wouldn't sit there and say that's any sort of betting insight. Oh, there might be a bug running around
Yeah.
the Ohio State locker room or whatever. But you just don't know. But I think on paper, Ohio State wins this game more often than not.
And let's keep in mind, too, what you were saying about the teams that Texas was playing. So Clemson, they were clearly a one-dimensional team. Everybody knew they had to throw the football because Maffa was injured. Everybody knew it. He couldn't do anything. So they had to throw the football. Matter of fact, they were handing the ball off in the second or third quarter to a wide receiver. Okay, so that's what everybody knew. So they couldn't deal with that. Then they couldn't deal with a team that couldn't throw the ball because their number one receiver was out. And it was all so all you have to do is stop the run. Stop the run. They couldn't do that. They couldn't even do that with a 14-point lead. In the second half, they couldn't stop the run. So I'm sorry. I just don't see it. And then their field goal kicker misses 2 game winners. And where's his confidence going to be if they need him? I look, the only player right now that deserves any credit in my mind is Quinn Ewers. Say what you want about the guy being open, whatever. It's a 4th down. It's a clutch situation, no doubt. I mean, it was a perfect pass. The kid's got moxie and all that, and give it to him. Sounds like now he's about to get really wealthy and stay in college, from what I hear, for another year, which is nice. Good for him. But you can't do it on your own if you're just a quarterback. They have the talent. We know that. But Ohio State is even more talented and they're more experienced. So it's always just been about up here with Ohio State. And now that's kind of gone. So I don't know. Like you're saying, anything's possible. We get that. That's why you play the game. These are just kids. Texas is a good program. They got quality coaches and quality players. Anything's possible. But the odds just tell you that this is going to be over before the 4th quarter.
Can you avoid the rat poison out there, which the sugar? I mean, because everybody was telling Ohio State after the Michigan game, you stink, you're no good, you probably shouldn't even be in the playoff, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. All right, you beat a Tennessee team at home, big deal, whatever. They weren't any good, but and then Oregon, well, you lost to them, and you're playing in their time zone, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And now there's this huge narrative change. Ohio State's the favorite. You guys are great.
Right.
You're awesome. Bye-bye,
Yes,
bye-bye, bye-bye.
That's true.
And, there is a very large mental aspect to everything in terms of the game and game preparation and everything else. I mean, you roll them out on the field and just say, go play your game, and that's fine. But, you got 9 days of press appearances and everything else leading up to it. And, would you rather play Notre Dame or Penn State? Well, whoa! You haven't even played Texas yet. So, I mean, what are you going to do at that point? Again, I have seen more Ohio State games than I care to admit that on paper Ohio State was the better team and that Ohio State lost. Covering Ohio State, I've seen very few games where Ohio State was the worst team on paper. And I've seen Ohio State win a few of them. I've seen Ohio State certainly lose a few of them, but I'm just really, really hesitant to push all in on this one. Let's just put it this way. I'm not going to empty my wallet on any of my apps on a single bet. I'm just going to say that one right now. I hear you. I'm just not there yet. But I mean, I think that Ohio State certainly is a team that over the last 8 quarters has shown better football. And then I think even with Texas, go back to the SEC championship game where didn't look very good in that game either.
No, they did not.
So it's not like it's there was this dynamic change in Ohio or Texas having to recalibrate to get to where it needs to be to play in the CFP, but this is going to be the moment. And then people are like, well, but playing at Jerry World, playing in Dallas. Yeah, I mean, provided people can get to the stadium, it should be a Texas crowd to a certain extent. But with that being said, I don't think that, in short of it being 90-10, and it's not, because Ohio State was already sold 12,500 tickets, which was its allotment. So you already
Okay.
know of 80,000. They've already got better than 1/8 of the crowd. And I'm willing to bet that a couple of Ohio State fans are going to find tickets on the secondary market.
Yeah.
I just don't think there's going to be enough to be able to just juice Texas to the point of being like, we're playing at DKR, we're at home, this is all well and good, and that we're going to be able, to accomplish all this, because it's not. And let's not forget, Texas lost to Georgia at Texas in the
Yes.
regular season. So it's not like it's a team that's like, plays one way at home and plays another way on the road. I mean, you can sit there and look, yeah, they beat the living tar out of Florida 49-17, but they didn't particularly look that good against Kentucky 31-14. I mean, so, what are we talking about here?
They really didn't have a very tough schedule this year. And their tough teams they did play, like Georgia twice, they didn't perform all that well. They were very sloppy games. And we saw last week just how good Georgia is. Yes, they didn't have the quarterback, and we get that. But they haven't been good all year. They've had all sorts of issues. You saw in the game. I mean, they had how many times they had some more drops in that game from a couple of the receivers, and I don't know how many times I keep telling you all season long that they've had the most drops in college football. Well, that's not a good football team when you have all those drops. So look, this is going to be once again about Ohio State. I think it's the same thing that we said in the opener against Tennessee. It's all about up here. It's about, can you handle now, like you said, being the team that everybody's patting you on the back and how great you are. Can you handle that? And if they can just handle that portion of it, and I think they will. Again, I'm very confident that they will. And I think that, and the reason I'm very confident that they will is because of the Michigan loss. I think these kids obviously grew up a lot, and that toughens you up like nothing. And that these kids have obviously just been through it. And I don't think they're dumb enough to fall into the trap. It was just a month ago, and they still have people who are probably saying to them, "Oh, I don't care what you do, you lost to Michigan." And so, I think that because of that, I believe that there's still a drive in this team that will keep them going and not put them into that trap that some other teams might fall into.
I think it just comes down on executing and playing your game plan. Now, if Will Howard goes out there, and the Texas secondary is really good. I mean, I think by far this is the best secondary Ohio State's faced. If Will Howard gets out there and tries to force a lot of passes and throws a couple turnovers, I mean, obviously that is a great equalizer. Turnovers are going to be a huge equalizer or whatever. If the line breaks down and Texas is number 4, I think it's 4 in the nation in sacks with 44. Ohio State's 3 with 47. Granted, Ohio State also has had 12 sacks in the last 2 games, so that's going to certainly help the numbers. I think that there are things that they could do that are mental breakdowns in terms of executing the game plan without necessarily buying into all of the rat poison that is out there, again, to use the Nick Saban term. So, again, I think that Ohio State, if it goes out and, even plays 80% of what it did against Oregon and Tennessee, is going to be in pretty good shape. It's if Ohio State goes out there and makes a lot of mistakes and Texas, raises its game, but Texas has been very mistake prone as well. It's not necessarily a case of where, Texas has been playing clean games and, just, dumb stuff has been happening and everything else. Quinn Ewers has thrown interceptions in the last 4 games. He threw 2 of them against Georgia in the SEC championship game. So, and Ohio State's pass rush has been pretty good as of late. And that's the situation. And I said the same thing about Oregon and Dylan Gabriel. Get after Dylan Gabriel. He's likely to throw a pick. He didn't throw a pick against Ohio State, but guess what? Ohio State defenders had their hands on about 6 different balls. And I swear to God, I heard people complain. It was a pretty good game, but if Ohio State would have been able to have a couple of interceptions, then I would have been impressed.
Please, come on now.
Yeah, I'm not kidding. I'm not
surprised. Just for the same people who are probably don't care if Ohio State. They'll give them grief because even if they win the national championship, because they lost to Michigan. So, all right. So again, you don't have a prediction yet. You were going to have one. So we're going to obviously put links in the description of this video so everybody can check it out and they can follow your content between now and the game. Definitely with the weather, and you want to keep an eye on that. before I let you go, are there any injuries of note, anything at all? Or is Ohio State as healthy as they could be right now since the playoffs have began?
Yeah, Ohio State is really healthy at this point. Again, I mean, they do a really good job of hiding injuries behind HIPAA from us. I mean, they are really maniacal about it. But, I don't really remember anybody taking a long minute to get off of the field at the Rose Bowl for Ohio State. Obviously, Oregon was not as fortunate dealing with some injuries during the game. So, no, I don't think that there's anything that I would see dramatically changing the geometry of how this game is working out. There's nobody that's been injured that's going to come back. I think they're going to just roll with the same dudes.
All right. Well, they do that. I think they're going to be just fine. And that means that if all goes well and nothing crazy happens, which is, I think, the only way that Ohio State somehow loses this game, and I just can't see it. But as long as nothing crazy happens, Kevin, I look forward to talking to you again one more time before the championship game. And hopefully you'll have a nice, safe trip if everything still says go. And I know it's not going to be easy with all the snow and everything, but you've been there before, so maybe that could help you, give you some advantages of exactly what you need to do in order to make sure that you have a very enjoyable stay there. And then again, best of luck, and we'll look forward to hopefully talking to you next week.
Sounds great.
Thanks a lot, Kevin. Again, thanks for everybody for joining us. Don't forget to check those links out in the description so you can follow Kevin on his journey to Dallas. And don't forget to check the weather forecast as well. We'll be back for more coverage of the playoffs with an interview that you can actually check out here on the channel that I just did with Kyle Kelly at blueandgold.com on the Notre Dame Penn State matchup.